What do you need?
Big guns! Huge guns! Lots of guns!
You were right. I was wrong. Sometimes you do need a gun.
It's alive! It's alive! It's big!
It's enormous.
This is the Big Guns Podcast with the owner and founder of CraneGuns.com and executive field ambassador with Harvest MXD Global Missions, Chris Crane.
Welcome, everybody, to the Big Guns Podcast, where we talk to and interview people who are excellent at what they do. Today, our very special guest is the one and only, the big gun of scheduling, Ian Van Oene. Ian, how are you doing, my brother?
I am doing wonderful. It is great to be here. Thanks for having me on, and thanks for letting me explain the art and practice of scheduling to your audience.
And how long have you been doing the scheduling for? How many years?
Shoot, 40?
40 years. Wow.
49
and you're still
years.
doing it. You're still doing it right now. That's where you're at now. You're in Georgia right now. They got you all over the country.
I'm in Georgia. I was in Mississippi last night. We're looking after a couple of data center projects. Each one, round numbers, a little under $1 billion worth of work. Employing thousands of people. Each one will employ a couple thousand people to build it, and then we will. We're building the future of the 21st century, because everything what we're doing here, right, is data center.
Right. And you, I think you got your start at actually scheduling, and we'll get more into that later at
Sure.
Intel, right? But before we get into that and go back into your history and everything, explain exactly why is it so important for someone to have someone excellent and talented like you to be their scheduler when you're doing a billion or a multi-billion-dollar project for these huge companies. What is scheduling exactly?
So scheduling is trying to figure out when, right?
Okay.
So I explain it like this: on a construction project, the engineers, the folks that design it, they understand the what. They tell you the what. We're going to build a this, and it's this big and that, right? The estimators, they figure out how much it's going to cost, right? So we're going to give you a box like this, and it's $1.50. I tell you when things
Okay.
can happen, when things need to happen. There's a couple other dates in there. There's a will happen and a should happen and a want to happen. So you got a set of at least 5 types of dates, and I kind of hold them all. And when you ask me a question, I'll give you this one, or I'll give you this one, or I'll give you this one, depending on how you're asking the question. And
it's important, right? Because we're talking hundreds of millions of dollars, billions of dollars. What are we talking about?
Absolutely. It's from the basics. When one of the cranes need to be here, right? When
Not these cranes. Not these cranes.
No,
The
big
construction
cranes, right?
cranes. I'm not going to Ian and scheduling, guys.
When did
They're
the
not bringing in
electrician
Chris Crane to build the building. Those kind of cranes, construction cranes. All right, go ahead.
when do the electricians show up? When do we need the material to? When do we need to buy the material so that it shows up 4 months from now ish, when we believe we're going to use it and put it on site? How early do we need to have it? How much do we want in stockpile in a warehouse somewhere where we can get it? You're trying to answer those types of questions, which are very important for everybody on the job. And it's not just the construction is complicated enough that you really need it. There's science to it. We use software for it and that, but almost every company and process has a scheduling function where somebody is saying when things need to happen, when things are going to happen, and how do we bring the need to happen versus the going to happen together, right?
Right.
If the job is small enough, or the project is small enough, or the event is small enough, you can kind of do that by yourself. You can keep it in your head. You can write it down. You can put it on a calendar, and that's great. But then as things get broader, as you involve more people, um, typically when you're involving more than about 150 people, 150 people, you really need to put some work to coordinating how the different groups are acting and how they're approaching.
And
So
again, we've talked a lot about that on what's being excellent is teamwork.
yep.
So much so far. I mean, everyone we've talked to has mentioned something about teamwork, and that's kind of what you're talking about, right? Is getting all the players in the team to to uh to go for that goal, right, and get the goal accomplished.
Oh, absolutely. So like you built a house, right? And so there's a stage where you wire the house and you run the wire inside the walls, right, for all the
Yeah,
light switches, right? So one of the straightforward questions the electricians ask are, well, when are the walls going to be there? Okay.
that's a good question.
Because if I show up to put the power in the walls and the walls aren't there, or they're still building the walls, or they've already closed up the walls,
Right,
right?
right.
I
Yeah,
have a problem. So,
yeah.
so, so I need them to have put the studs up so I can run my wire through, but not put the
So,
drywall on.
right. So, Ian, if you're on $1 billion project and you're bringing in an electrical contractor with all his trucks and his people and his crew of 20 guys, and they show up and there's no walls there to put the wires in, you're talking a lot of money lost, right?
Absolutely. Now, hopefully somebody's given them a call and waved them off, right? But then they have to figure out what to do with their people. They got their 20 folks together,
Right.
right? Those people want
Right.
to get paid,
Right.
right?
And they could be
And
coming from a different state. So you got hotels, you got per diem, you got travel, right? Sometimes.
absolutely. And so worst case is the contractor sends his 20 people to some other job. And so then a week later, when you're ready for them, they're like, "Yeah, we were here last week. We're not here now. We'll be here 2 weeks from now, right?"
Right. So, all right. So we've established what scheduling is and how important it can be,
Sure.
especially for these corporations or companies when you're doing a huge project. And so there's a lot of moving parts, right? There's all
But
kinds of different moving parts. So what I want to do is I want to go back to young Ian. Um, and I know from knowing you that you're the type of guy that reads math books for fun, correct?
I yes.
You can admit to it. It's all right. So you've already got this mind for numbers. You've already got this mind for equations and everything. And when you were younger, like a lot of people know, like, the classic board games like Risk and stuff like that. But what age was it that you like started getting into wargaming and stuff?
Oh shoot. I was probably like 8 or 9 years old, my brother and
Eight or
I.
so it's starting at like 8 or 9 years old. It's already, and guys, we're not talking like Risk, okay? And this is back, what year was that when you were 8 or 9 around, Ian? What year?
So that would have been
70
early
something?
70s, 73, 74.
Yeah, so there's no like Settlers of Catan where it's all on the computer and everything, guys. We're talking 8-year-old Ian, and these games weren't readily available. Like you had to go search for them back then. Like you
You,
had to
you,
go to
you
like a specialty store or something, right?
absolutely to get your first one, and then they had a little catalog, and you're like, "Ooh, I would like this one, which is about the naval battles in World War II in the Atlantic Ocean."
But
Um,
Ian, everyone's thinking of the computer. It's all laid out on the computer. When you got that game, you had instructions. You had all these different rules that you had to learn for the game, and I think that's probably why they weren't quite as popular because it took a lot of work. And then you got to set up all the little pieces, right? You got to find a big room or a big table and set up all the little pieces and everything. Tell us about that.
and leave them set up, and then your mom gets mad at you. Why? Well, I want my table back, right? And I would read the rules, and my brother would hate me for it because I would read the rules, and he would just
Yeah,
kind of skim the rules, right?
right.
And so we'd be at this situation, and the battle's developing, and he'd try something. I like page 12, paragraph 14, subsection 2. Okay, you're moving through swamp with an
Right.
armored unit, which means your movement is cut in half
Right.
and your
Right.
supply line's only a third. So you're out of fuel. You're only half movement, so you can't get your second unit in. So you're only attacking with one unit at half
Right.
strength. I think my guy wins, right?
Yeah,
And
and again, we're not talking about Dungeons and Dragons. I mean, you could kind of call that like a strategy game or something, but right, but we're talking about like war games, like strategy games that you got to know all the rules, you got to know what all the pieces do, and if you don't know, if you skim over them like your brother, you're going to get frustrated because you're going to get your butt kicked every time, right?
but by a rules lawyer like me, yes.
Right, right, right. So you can already see like at 8 or 9 how you're like training your brain. You've got that mathematical brain, right? I think you graduated from University of Michigan, right?
University of Michigan Electrical Engineering. Yeah.
Yeah, electrical engineering, which you got to know a lot of math. You got a lot of
So,
so
so,
so you're putting the
so, so,
math and all these moving parts together. Go ahead. What were you gonna say?
so it was more than the math. What it trains you in those games, those are strategy games, right? They train you to think longer, to think further out, to think deeper, right? We're making this set of moves now because um, later on in the game, much later in the game, I want to be doing something else. I want to be somewhere else. So you're thinking beyond next. A
Right.
lot of people will think now. Some people will think to next, a little bit beyond now. You got to think beyond next,
Hmm.
and be able to do that. So training my brain, um, not just the math and the equations, but also laying out the actions in time to get here. I have to do a set of things, so I need to be acting now. My units need to be leaving the port now to get the invasion 3 turns from now.
Right, right. So basically, in practical real life, you're thinking about and preparing for the future, basically.
Absolutely.
Yeah, so
Absolutely.
your brain, you're already training your brain at a very young age. Now, Ian, parlez-vous français?
Un petit peu. I was raised by a woman who was a French professor. She spoke French Canadian. She spoke a lot of
Because
French.
she was a
She
from
was, she
where?
was,
What
she was,
country?
she was a Canadian. She's from
All
Canada.
right.
I was a Canadian
All
from
right,
Canada.
that's right.
And yeah, mom would read to us in little French storybooks, comic books, Asterix and Obelix, and she would translate to it, and we would read that. My actual formal training was 4 years in high school French.
Okay.
Um, and
But my point is you were not you're full American right now with a capital M.
absolutely,
By now. We me and Ian have thrown out the A. It's just American capital M. But all right. But anyway, so with all the talk and all the controversy and whatever, the hubbubaloo, whatever you want to call it, about immigration, tell us how you went from being a Canadian citizen to being a full red-blooded American with the capital M.
so I'd graduated from university, and I was had some issues, and I had a real hard time talking to people. So I couldn't get a job. I was
Mm,
freshly minted electrical engineer. People were looking for folks like me to try and hire. I couldn't talk to them, I couldn't interview, right?
mm.
So I said, well, shoot, I'll join the military. They'll take me. They got a whole process to bring me in. So I went down to the
Not the
Air Force.
Canadian military.
No, this was the American. The United States
Okay,
will let
okay.
anybody
Yeah.
serve, right?
Hmm.
And I have my green card. I was a resident. So I go down to the recruiter. Happened to be an Air Force recruiter. He was within walking distance. I didn't have a car, so and he's like, sure, we'll bring you in. Absolutely, ran me through the test. He's like, amazing. Well, you should be an officer. Yeah, I'm not a citizen. Ah, okay. Well, we'll bring you in, and maybe you can become
Oh,
an officer.
no. So, yeah, because I knew that you had your engineering degree from Michigan, and I wondered why you weren't an officer. So
That's
now that
that's
makes sense to me. See, I didn't know that. So if you're not a citizen, you couldn't be an officer.
no. You'd have to get some massive waiver from somewhere really high end.
Oh, okay.
But
Okay, that makes
most
sense now.
the rule is you're not going to be in a command position, right? Because your loyalties are in theory divided.
Gotcha.
So I enlisted. They said, "Hey, we'll make you a scheduler." So I got my formal training in aircraft maintenance scheduling
Mm-hmm.
in Rantoul, Illinois, Chanute Air Force Base. No longer exists. It's gone out, right? It was flattest place I've ever been in, middle of a soybean field, just nothing, every direction but soybeans. Oh my God, perfect place to run a bunch of young men and women through because there's nothing to do out there. And what can go wrong when you got about a bunch of 18 and 19-year-old boys and girls confined to a small area?
Oh,
Uh,
nothing.
Nothing, nothing. So they, I got from there, went down to Albuquerque, New Mexico.
Okay.
And I kind of tell the story a little bit. I'd skinnied down my possessions to the
Mm-hmm.
point where when I was going through the Albuquerque airport, and I was literally carrying everything I owned, which was
Wow.
primarily the uniform items, and I had one suitcase of civilian stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I was going to go. Sergeant picked me up, takes me. Here's your barracks room, there you are. There's the chow hall. There's your, but you didn't need anything, right?
Right.
And show up. Here's your place of work. We'll see you in the morning. Thank you very much, right? And so there, that was Kirtland Air Force Base. Oh shoot, 1987.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
Mm-hmm.
why I've been doing this not quite 40 years, depending how you score it, right? 39 years, 46,
Sure.
87 to 26, 2026.
Mm-hmm.
Long time. But fundamentally, my entire professional life, I've been scheduling. And
And so back up a little bit. So was your goal to get a job or was your goal to become a citizen? Or a little bit of
so
both?
so I didn't have a goal to become a citizen at the time. I was just do 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 do, because
Gotcha.
nothing changed, right? Nothing really changed.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But what they so it was get a job, figure out how to figure out how to get a job. I didn't know how to get a job, right? So
Mm-hmm.
so I got a job and was working the interpersonal things. So I learned how to talk to people because it
Mm-hmm.
would be like, Ian, here's the set of schedules. Go and distribute them and tell people, oh, I gotta go to talk to strangers. Here you are, sir. Here's your schedule, right?
But
Um,
it's really kind of cool how, I mean, you're this brilliant guy. You read math books for fun. You've got this talent that no one really knows what it's good for, right? Right?
yep.
Wargaming. You can't make any money or do a business doing wargaming and stuff, but you've already kind of like trained yourself, and you're just looking for a job. You say, "All right, I'll go into the military. I'll go into the Air Force," and that is the thing that God used to prepare you for what you were meant to do and what you were that was like your springboard into the future.
Oh, absolutely. So became a citizen because I had to. So what
Mm-hmm.
they did was suddenly the military decided that we needed to do they were going to group the various special forces together. 1550th Combat Crew Training Wing. The combat crews that they trained were the pararescue, the Air
Mm-hmm.
Force PJs, and the pilots and the air crew, the flight engineers, the load masters, and all of that supported them. So suddenly they said, "Hey, the pararescue and associated pilots, you're special ops now, and your unit, your training unit is now part of special ops command." So we suddenly became special ops people. And the joy of being a special ops person is you had to have a clearance, you had to have security clearance.
Mm.
And to get a security clearance, had to be a citizen. And it wasn't just me. The office I was in, I was trained by a Filipina. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
there was an Indonesian that we had. So the three of us were flat out foreigners. Two other people were Americans. One had been born in Israel. One had been born in England. Right?
Mm.
They called us the frickin' United Nations. So suddenly the three of us foreigners actually, we all had to get our citizenship, get our clearance, and that. So we were, filling out paperwork and making the applications, and
Wow.
and the military helps you with that, right? They
Of
they they
course. Of
they put you on
course.
a fast track, and here it is. And it's great when you show up to the interviewer and you're in your full uniform.
Right, but most people that get like an electrical engineering degree, I don't know, I may be wrong, you tell me, but scheduling isn't like high on the list with an electrical engineering degree. Am I wrong about that?
So you're not.
Okay.
But on the other hand, almost nobody starts out to be a scheduler. There's no like coursework to be a scheduler. You don't have a degree
Right.
program to be a scheduler. People tend to fall in it. I've good schedulers that I've had. One was a nurse.
Mm-hmm.
One was a philosophy major with a PhD in Celtic wells, Celtic mythology. Okay.
Oh my.
And you had your technicians. Typically, it was a craft that somebody did because
Yeah.
nobody else was doing it, and they discovered they were good at it, and suddenly they were just cranking out on it, and going in all kinds of different directions.
Yeah, and I want to step back because that's about the time that you started going to one of the major churches here in Albuquerque
Oh
when you're in the
yeah.
Air Force here.
So I was in the Air Force. I'd converted to Christianity before I entered, but
Okay.
I was unchurched. I'd
Okay.
grown up with a not Christian background. Both my mother and father had very bad experiences with established churches and were absolutely refusing to have anything to deal with it. Right. So it's kind of homeless on that. Uh, my last year there at the university, an ecumenical group had reached out to me and brought me in and converted me, right? Got me
Okay.
saved. Then I went off to the military. And so in basic training, you go to church because you can sleep in church.
Right, right. I've
And
heard that before.
the various offsite groups they would come and you try to figure out, do the Baptists have better food and better looking girls,
Right,
or
right.
am I a Catholic this week, right? Well, what am I, right? And you go to, they'd come, they'd pick you up, they'd take you out base. It was relaxing. You could sleep.
Right, right.
Then you got to eat and you got to meet women, right?
Perfect. Yeah.
Absolutely, right? So not that I did that, but so I come back and
Eat, sleep, or meet women.
yes, meet women. Women were scary. Women were so scary, and still are, at a certain level. So so I get out there and I've got a roommate, and Sheldon, and he had a car, and he was a Christian, and he's like, "Hey
Hmm.
man, go to this church. You should come, right?" And so
Hmm.
I, I got nothing else to do. It's Sunday, and so
Uh-huh.
he hauls me down to Victory Love Fellowship, and it was an amazing place.
It was.
Pastor Rob was intense,
Yes, he
absolutely
was. Yes, he was. Very
scared at
intense.
you, and
And so you went to Victory Love Fellowship, which was the name of the church, for those that don't live in Albuquerque. And you got involved in ministry. And this is where I want to back up because we're talking about the characteristics of people who are excellent at whatever they do. And the big thing that I got about you when I met you is you got into ministry. You were teaching just a home Bible study. What we had, what, 8, 10 people in there, if that
yeah,
many, something like that. And so I had also just got born again. I had come out of, college athletics. I'd gone through a police academy. I was a police officer at the time. And and I'm in my early 20s. And so, it's in early 20s at that time of my life, I'm still like really into me. You know what I mean? I
yeah,
don't know really what it means to care about other people. I don't know what it means to not be selfish. And I walk into this Bible study, and Ian is the leader. And just being a police officer, I guess it's my nature. I just observe. Sometimes I just like to observe. And one thing that was really awesome about you, Ian, that I was observing, um, maybe it jumped out at me because the Holy Spirit was convicting me and saying, "Hey, buddy, you need to stop being so selfish and into yourself." But what I'm saying is that Ian showed me what it's like to care about other people, and I really appreciated that. And I was like, man, that guy really cares about other people. How do I be like that?
Oh man, you're bringing me back. That was a long time ago. That
It
was a long
was.
time ago. And those the fellowship was great because it was a small group. You had the lines that, 3 points and a couple of scriptures that you had to do, right? So it was
Yeah.
structured enough that you weren't winging it, but still open enough for the discussion that you could bring it out. And the joy of that one was really, it was not me talking, right? But it was trying to get everybody else to bring their part to it and share what they had to do. Because it was just a me show, then it gets really, it's the same. Every week it's the same, right?
Right.
But when I'm looking at the questions and I'm walking them through the questions and asking these people how these type of things apply to their lives, you're learning so much about folks. And then you build the friendships and you start doing things together. We always had a little snack afterwards. And I was in a couple of these groups,
Hmm.
for forming friendships. And you build that bond
Yeah.
that you're able to do that, right? And you talk to them through the week, as people have problems, or you're just reaching out, right? Because you never
Hmm.
actually know when somebody has a problem. You give them a call, and it's the perfect time to talk, because
And that's what I mean. You're calling people, you're calling people because you really cared about them. And I mean, I remember you were visiting people in the hospital. You were concerned about birthdays and all this other stuff. And like I said, a young 20-year-old me, that was like foreign to me. But I was like, no, this is something godly. It's not all about me. It's about other people. And I'm just saying, you set the example to me on how to care, to really care and think about other people besides yourself.
yeah. No, it was. Oh, thank you for that, right? And then the role evolved, right? Because I moved into, from one Bible study, they called them branch leaders. I think I had four or
Right,
five, and so
right.
now I'm at a different place every week, and I'm trying to minister to the hosts, and the leaders, the folks who open their homes. It was really, those folks occasionally were actually taken for granted, and you had to encourage them, and
Yeah.
go in and clean their house if you had to, right? Oh man, who's what was her name? Susan. Not sure what the last name was, and she had a nice house, and it was winter, and we lit a fire in her house, and we forgot to open the damper. Smoke comes out,
Oh
right?
no.
And it's all over her ceiling,
Oh my goodness.
and stuff like that, right? So it's like the next day we're out there with buckets and ladders, right? Got a
Uh-huh.
couple, a couple other people together, and we're up there, we're washing her ceiling down, trying to get this stuff off, and without taking the paint off, right? And
Right,
so
right,
it works actually fairly well, but soot, that smoke, it gets everywhere, right? It's in all the little crevices. And oh yeah, you missed a spot. Oh yeah, you missed a spot. But being able to do that for her, was such a, it wasn't like, your problem.
right.
Sorry.
Hmm.
Um, we were there, cut her grass a couple of times also, because she didn't know, you know she was this little woman, and big lawn, didn't have the men folk around to go and do it
Right.
anymore, right? And so hosts were always fun. You'd almost always find somebody who wanted to lead. I'm going to be
Hmm.
a leader. Yeah, okay, great, you're a leader. Let's go put you in here. Let's go see how
Yeah,
you
you
do.
talked me into it. You talked me into it, and then all of a sudden I became a pastor and a missionary. And I'm like, what? What happened?
Absolutely.
All right, brother. So you're in the Air Force. You got thrown into scheduling. at Kirtland Air Force Base, right?
Portland Air Force
You're
Base, yes.
scheduling aircrafts, and now you're in special ops with the clearance and all that. So then you go to Intel, and if people don't remember, this was like the 90s, right? Early 90s.
It was the early 90s. I was with Martin Marietta briefly between
That yeah.
the Air Force, because I got out of the Air Force, got hired on by Martin Marietta, the postal systems, and I learned how to schedule production in a
Okay.
factory and equipment installation. We were putting postal sorting machines in post offices all over the U.S. And then they closed because they couldn't make a go of it. They were trying to become a defense contractor in a
Mm-hmm.
non-defense environment. Really had a hard time. They closed the factory and everybody gets laid off. I get laid off right there.
Oh, you
I
got
had
laid off at Martin Marietta.
absolutely.
Okay.
So I'd got married. I had been married 2 years. My wife was pregnant. I got laid off like 3 days before my baby was born.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so now I got no job. I got no way to pay for the house. I bought a house, of course, right? Because you could do it back then. So I got a house payment, and I got a new wife, and I got a new baby, and then my wife got sick, right? Had
Mm,
complications from the birth, and she's going to die. Oh my God, she's
mm,
going to die, right? So we pray she doesn't die. But I'm unemployed. I'm taking care of a sick wife and a new baby, having a hard time looking for work, right? How do
wow.
you do that? It was right before the holidays, right before Christmas, hard time to find work anyway. So the new year comes, and I've sent my resumes out to a construction company called Hoffman Construction. They were building a factory for Intel. And New Year comes, and their scheduler had said he was leaving because it wasn't a good project, and he was going to go out to New England and work in the big dig in Boston. So they called me up and they said, because I didn't have any construction experience, right? So they had to work through a long layer of resumes before they got to mine. So they
Right.
give me a call, they bring me in, and the guy I'm looking at was my boss at Martin Marietta. Okay, and he'd had a construction background, and he was the guy that was leaving. Okay.
Okay.
So the job was opening up because he had decided he was leaving. And he looks at me and goes, Ian, because I know you have no idea how to do this. You've never done this, but you'll learn. You'll learn. Okay. Here's what's going to happen. First, you're going to talk to this guy. He's going to ask you
Uh-huh.
this question and this question. Here are the answers. Then you're going to talk to this guy. He's going to ask you this question and this question. Here are the answers. Then you're going to talk to that guy. He's an executive. Just be yourself to him, right? So he rehearsed the next set of interviews with me. Okay. So
Uh-huh.
how God is this, right? I've been on my face screaming, crying, desperate.
Wow.
I need a job, right? I need a way to feed my family, pay, take care of my wife, make my house payment. And God says, easy button. Here's what I'm going
Uh-huh.
to go do. These folks are desperate for a schedule. They're so desperate, they'll hire someone with no experience doing construction scheduling. And the guy who's going to bring you in, you already know, and you're going to ace the interview. So absolutely ace the interviews because I've been prepped, right?
Uh-huh.
I go home, he gives me a call. Yeah, they're going to give you a job. They don't negotiate on salary. So just they'll give you a fair salary. Just take it, right? And
Wow.
so the next week I had a job. I had a job at the end of that week. It was amazing.
That is amazing. But you weren't working for Intel. You're working for the construction company at Intel.
That was building the Intel factory, yes.
Okay.
So I was desperate. I didn't know a thing about construction scheduling. So they hired a consultant to actually build this, draw the logic, tell me what the activities were called. And I was just donkeying them into the computer and reading the manual, how to schedule, right? The software came with a how to be a scheduler manual. I was working whatever hours I needed to be. I was there, as long as I had to be. I was working weekends, and I was reading that book. I was reading that book. I was paying attention. I was walking the job. I was listening to people. I was talking to people, and
Just like the war game. Just like the war game
absolutely,
rules. You're reading the book for the scheduling rules. I'm telling you, man, God prepares you. So if you're a little kid, you don't know what you're gonna do. That's awesome.
abs- Absolutely. And I didn't know anything. It was amazing how ignorant I was about not so much the mechanics of scheduling, because you can learn those, but
Hmm.
the dynamics of how the schedule affects people, how people respond to the schedule. Some people follow schedules, some people don't follow schedules. Some people,
Hmm.
you know, want you to bring their schedule into yours, and yeah, these are the wrong activities. We want to call them this, that, and the other thing, right? We're going to build this left to right instead of right to left.
Oh,
But it's the dynamics of how the schedule affect the people, right? How do they respond to the schedule? Do they try to hit that date? Um, or do they understand what the objectives are? Because what you'll do is you put together a plan on how do we get to this date, then the plan immediately goes sideways. The information is actually in the difference.
and so
Um,
was it from your work with that construction company that Intel saw you and or you put in an application? How did you transition from there to Intel?
so yeah, Hoffman moved me around a little bit. I was up in Oregon, traveling up to Oregon, building a factory with Hoffman for Fujitsu, and a courthouse downtown, federal courthouse downtown. You know that one that everybody's riding in front of? Yeah,
Yeah.
that was my job. Beautiful. It was a beautiful courthouse. Um, and I was on the road. Intel was looking for people. Um, so I'm down in New Mexico, and one of my friends calls me over. So let's have lunch, okay? And they go, we'd like you to apply for this job. And okay, I think I can do that. So they created a position fundamentally for me.
Wow.
I applied for that, interviewed with it with the people. One of the interviewers, that knew me very well, had worked with me a lot, was like, "Please take this job. Please take this job. Please take this job." Um, so they hired me in, right?
Hmm.
And started to learn corporate life. Absolutely learn corporate life.
And
And
this is like guys, this is Intel in the early 90s, okay? This is when Intel was when it came to computer chips and computer technology. This was like the golden age of Intel. I mean, all my friends that had money, I mean, were trading in the stock market in Intel and everything. I mean, basically, Albuquerque is the biggest city in New Mexico, but Intel just made Rio Rancho at that time. I mean, Rio Rancho was like a little village, but it created so much economic opportunity and everything. I mean, it was just exploding. But uh, but during this time, Intel kept I don't know what it was, but so I knew a lot of people that worked at Intel, right? If you're in Albuquerque, because it's such a big influence and such a big factory, we knew people. You know somebody that works in every area of the factory or the corporation or whatever. And so it was somewhere around like the mid 90s, I think, Ian. My memory might be wrong, but it seemed like every 2 years there was a massive purge at Intel.
oh, so yeah, I mean, Intel, absolutely. They would grow, and they would shrink, and they would grow, and they would shrink as they were reworking their company for the future. And the 90s, it was primarily growth, but you still one of the better examples I heard was Jim Keller was a podcaster, and he's a brilliant guy in semiconductors, and he
Hmm.
worked for AMD, and he worked for Intel. And he said that the problem is what happens is you've got a lot of people, and you grow your organization to a certain size, and they're kind of doing more or less the right thing, but you want to go in a slightly different direction. And he goes, it's like trimming your hedge, right? You never cut your hedge back to where you want it to be. You cut it smaller than that,
Mm,
and then it grows back to where you want it to be. So you've got an organization that's a certain size. You don't cut back to a number that you think you want. You cut back below that number, and then you hire
interesting.
back to you get
Okay.
the right people, different people, right? Because you need different people because you're going in a slightly different direction, and you get back to that, and so you're not just kind of stuck at a certain level. So you always cut below where you need, and then you grow back. And so Intel kind of did that. You would see, okay, we've finished up this, we're moving in a different direction, we're going to get rid of this department, and we're going to go hire people in that department. So they were laying off and hiring fundamentally at the same time. That's what happened to me.
Well,
Shortly after, go
yeah,
ahead.
but the reason I bring it up is because you had to be excellent at what you do because you survived every one for
Oh,
like over
absolutely.
20 years.
Oh,
Like all my other people I knew were getting laid off and cut. And I think there were some that were more scarier to you than others. But you ended up surviving every single one because you're just too good at what you do. They couldn't get rid of
so
you.
so I had a skill set that they needed, right? They would kill construction every so often. They would go through a building boom, they'd build a construction organization, the construction organization would reach a certain size, then the boom would stop. They built all the factories they needed. And I try to explain this to people that in construction, you always need to be looking for work because no matter the size of the job, the project comes to an end. And
Right.
good or bad, the project comes to an end and you need to find something to do. Now, it might be internally with the company, or you might be looking at a different company, but you always have to be looking for work because the project is always going to end. I didn't know that in the early years. And I
Hmm.
was just, oh my God, what am I doing? Right. So they hire me into the construction organization. It's building a thing. And within a year, they kill construction and they lay almost all the construction folks off. They kept me around because I had some skills. I got parked in an information systems group
Okay.
where, and so I spent 6 months learning how to do software development, structured software development, write requirements documents, test documents, be a business analyst, pull that out, right? Until there was a construction project kicking up and someone said, we need this guy and he's good. And I got routed over to that one. Um, Very quickly. It was like one day, you come in, you're not working for us anymore. You're working for those guys, right? So when it supported a couple of construction efforts, then until it entered a building phase, we start building, we build another factory on the New Mexico site. And then it all goes away again, right?
Hmm.
And I try to explain this. You'll build a semiconductor fab, and modern semiconductor fabs will be like $10 billion. Back then, they weren't quite that much. It was an $800 million factory. We're going to build an 800, still a lot of money, right?
Yeah.
And we're going to have 6,000 construction workers on it, right? And then you finish the job because construction always ends. And suddenly you move from an $800 million project to a $60 million project. Still, you're spending a lot of money, but the workforce goes from 6,000 people to 600 people,
Mm.
which is still a lot of people, a lot of people. But 90% of the folks have been let go. And you got to think that through what that means when you see 9 out of every 10 people disappear every few
Wow.
years. And I was became key staff, was core. I'd go on the road, because the other thing on construction is sometimes the job isn't here, which is why I'm in Georgia, right? Because the job's in Georgia, job's not in Phoenix,
Hmm.
where I live. So you go where the work is. So every once in a while, I would travel, and I would be loaned out to a job in Arizona or Colorado Springs or Oregon or even Ireland or Israel or Costa Rica or other places that I've
Right.
gone to.
Right.
And so work would find me because I was good, right? And I had a reputation. And as you go to these people, go to these other sites, you build your network, right? People learn who you are. They see your face. That's another thing about remote work. Um, if you're working remotely, you're never seen.
Hmm.
So today I'm in the job trailer. I happen to show up. I'm down on the job site. I'm sitting there. I got my screens open. I've got my schedule up. I'm talking to a young intern next to me. The CEO of the company of my current construction company, Gray Construction, the Gray from Gray Construction,
Okay.
comes in, son of
Mr.
the founder.
Gray. Mr. Gray
Son
came
of
in.
the founder, yes. Um, and hey guys, how you doing? What you up to? What you talking about, right? Okay. If I'm remote, he never sees me, right?
Right.
And but I'm there. And so He sees me. Does he know me? No, he doesn't know me. But on the other hand, he's an executive, which means he's got a great memory for faces and names, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And he's truly a people person because he's built this remarkable organization and
Sure.
and and kept it going, right? So he knows that there's this guy named Ian. He's a scheduler. I saw him working on this job. Ian works on my jobs, right?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Versus just being a voice on the phone, right? So you get put in the right place at the right time. You get seen by the right people. You have to put yourself out there.
Sure.
And I tell people hard pays better than easy. So
Mm-hmm.
if you want, you have to manage the level of hard that you want in your life. If you want to pursue uh, excellence, right? If you want to
Yes.
pursue the larger dollar, if you want to become successful, it all takes work. None of
Yeah.
this stuff is easy. The overnight
Right.
success, you don't see the 20 years of work that led up to that
Mm-hmm.
and doing it, right? You go look at what's the guy, Mr. Beast, you look at his first videos on YouTube, they're hilarious, right? But and he did years of that before,
Where it took
it-
off.
before
So, like you said, we're talking about being excellent. You already said the hard work. I like that one. What else have you done for the past 40 years that gets you through all the layoffs, that makes you so that you are a desired employee, that people everywhere all over the world, companies are wanting Ian? What is something that you do to keep excellent for this long?
so there's a variety of things. One is stay positive. Okay.
Stay positive, like
Um,
that.
you can there the job will get hard. The job will really, really, really get hard at times. Sometimes you're on a project and the project is just lousy, and it's never going to get better, right? For reasons. There's budgetary constraints. COVID happened, whatever, right? And you just you're going to ride it to the end. You're not going to quit, right? Because if you get a reputation for leaving, then why do I want you on my job? Because you're just going to leave.
Mm,
You also have to say yes when asked. Okay. Someone says, "Hey, Ian, I need you to go to Costa Rica." Right? You say yes. Because if you say no, they're not going to ask you again. You don't get the opportunity to go to Ireland. But you say yes to Costa Rica, you get an opportunity to go to Ireland because Ian will travel.
mm.
I've sent Ian places, or I was in Costa Rica and Ian showed up and helped me. Now I'm in Ireland and let's bring Ian out here to do that, right? So it's do hard, say yes, stay cheerful, right? There's a great poem by Kipling called "If." If you can keep your head when all about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you is the opening line, right? You got to do
Hmm.
that. There's a couple of things I try to do. One of the things I try to do is when I meet people, I ask them, what good things happened to you today or this week? Everybody is primed to tell you what bad things are happening to you. And a lot of my job actually is going around the job site and asking people, how's it going, right? Because they'll tell you what they're doing and I'm writing that down. And they'll tell me what the problems are and I write those down. So yeah, the electricians are over here and they can't get into the space because the drywallers aren't done. So that's their problem today. So you're talking to the superintendent. What can you do about getting the drywallers moving to help the electricians, right? So you start making those connections. Um, but you ask that question, what good things happen to you? And people will draw a blank and they'll have to think. And, the default is, well, I got up this morning. Well, if that's the best thing that happened to you, then praise God you got up this morning. Because for some people on some days, that's the best thing that happened to them. I mean, you've been there in the dark night of the soul when life just takes a dump on you, right?
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and just keeps dumping. And when I'm sitting there with a sick wife and a new baby and a house payment and no job, I was feeling like Job. I'm scratching my sores with a bit of pottery, right? And oh, that's how I felt. Um, and you maintain positive. It's not everything's going to come up roses. You're not being deluded or anything like
Well,
that,
I
right?
mean, scripturally, Ian, I mean, that's basically the joy of the Lord is our strength. It doesn't mean that you always feel it emotionally and everything, but that joy, the spirit of joy that's in you, can get you through all the tough times and the tough things that you're talking about.
And we're promised a future, right? There's a hope and glory. There's a future glory. My wife hates it when she's talking about this, that, and the other thing, politics, bad things are happening in the world. And I tell her, count it all joy when trials come.
Yes.
Okay. And oh, the world is going to hell. Well, it's supposed to go to hell. It's supposed to get there, right? We're actually told it gets there. And we are told to rejoice when we see that day approaching.
Yes.
Because that brings the day of the Lord, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you're not looking at the current situation necessarily. You still have to, because you still have to live and you still have to survive. You still have to do that, right? But you're not being so burdened by it, but you can look past that. You can look past next. So for me, I try to look past next. Yeah, bad things are in my life. I actually live a very nice life. Bad things typically aren't happening to me, right? But they might, and they're happening to my neighbors, and they're happening to other people. And how do we help them out, right? But you look past next, and bad things are always there. They're always there. The bad thing is going to come. There is a wolf out there in the woods, and he might show up at your door. You might be unemployed the day after tomorrow, or someone you love very deeply, right?
Yeah.
Might be a child. Child gets into a car accident. What happens, right? At a friend's daughter, she was driving home, from work. Guy runs the red and T-bones her in an intersection, right? Breaks her hip,
Oh
right?
my
Breaks her
goodness.
pelvis, right?
Mm-hmm.
She couldn't go to her high school graduation because she was recovering from a broken pelvis, right? Horrible things, right?
Yeah.
And and you mourn with them, right? You help them. You can't do anything, but you're there for them, and you're present, and you listen, and you mourn with them, because blessed are those who mourn; they will be comforted.
And
So,
and again, that's the same thing that I saw in you uh a long time ago. How many years ago? I can't remember, at the Bible study, caring about other people. So I like that. Think in the future, stay positive, be cheerful, and say yes. So along those lines of saying yes and having to stay positive, I want to talk real quick about, along those lines of caring about other people, about, like you said, you had a daughter, she became 18, you guys could have been empty nesters, and then you took on a project, you and your wife, and you said yes to
oh,
what? Tell us
absolutely,
about that.
absolutely. So we picked up this little guy, and his sister many years ago, right? He's now a freaking teenager.
And again, just let
And
me remind everyone what I said in case you didn't hear me. Ian's already had his first his first family, his first children. They're 18, they're out of the house. Ian is a lot older now. And he says yes, okay? So we're
and
talking the second group of kids when you're a little bit older. Go ahead, Ian.
it was a little bit older, right? And God is an absolute blessing, right? Because God did a miracle. So the sick wife and the new daughter, we couldn't have more children, right? We
Mm-hmm.
wanted more children. So 30 some odd years ago, when my oldest was born, God created a child-sized hole in the hearts of my wife and I, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's because God was answering this guy's prayers
Mm-hmm.
before he called him out. And he couldn't ask or speak because he was a little guy. He could just cry,
Mm-hmm.
right? And he was neglected, and he cried himself out. And we got him at 4 months old. He was placed in our arms as a miracle. We adopted him in reverse. We were given the child, and then we met the mother, and then we got working through the system. We found a lawyer, and we got into the system for adoption, and then we went through the home study, and then we finally finalized it, right, for him. And then a year later, we were gifted his sister as well, not one but two. And so God created a child-sized hole in our heart to answer his prayers and prepared a place for him so that when he needed a family, the family was ready there and primed to say yes. So he gets dropped into our lives. And yeah, our daughter was we were ready to send her off to college, and we were going to be on the road, and we were going to live large. We were driving to from Albuquerque to Phoenix, and we're talking. Um, this is before we got him, just before we got him, and we're like, I tell you what, let's just go on the road for a while. Let's live off of Intel's dime for 5 to 7 years, whatever, right? Intel will pay for our livings. We'll put all our money away. We'll have a lot of money, and then we'll be able to buy a place, settle down, and kind of retire, right? And then I learned I get to work till I die. Okay. Fundamentally, I get to work till I die. Because these children are they're treasure and a blessing, never a burden or a curse. But you do get to pay for them, right? You do get to pay for them. And so my life choices changed. Um, I'm now working longer than I would have otherwise planned to, in part because you have to demonstrate to your children what work looks like.
Mm.
So you have to show them that work ethic, that do hard, that go where the work is, say yes, to be cheerful, the whole thing, or they have no idea how money happens. They don't know.
Right, right, right.
And so you have to demonstrate to that. And then, he'll go off, we'll find a place for him in the world. He'll make a place for him in the world. His sister will make a place for herself in the world. But you still want to help your children
Mm-hmm.
because it takes a while for them to roll off the payroll. And even when they're off the payroll, right? When they're freely supporting themselves, right? It feels so good to be able to bless them with
Yeah.
something when they were little, right? When they were a little tiny and you got them a Christmas present, they open that Christmas present and you get the squeal, you get that, right? And you got that perfect present, right? And it's real easy to do when they're 4 and 5 and all they want is the latest whatever, right? A little harder to do when they're 14 and 15. It's really hard to do when they're 25, right?
Right, right.
But when you can gift them with something that they really need, that they really want it, that they're this is great, Dad. Thank you. Right? You're
Uh-huh.
dad again. You're back in that role, and it's tremendously awesome. So I'm looking forward to that, right? But that means I have to work
Mm-hmm.
because I've invested my savings of so I have not stored up my treasure on earth.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because my wife loves to take care of the children, loves
Mm-hmm.
to spend money on them, right? And I love to make that happen. Um, so I do hard. I'm one of the best in the world at what I do, honestly, right?
Absolutely.
I've
Confidence
run.
too. Love
Well,
that.
it's taken a while, right? But I'm now in a role where I'm hiring people. I'm interviewing folks, and I'm like, that bar is so freaking low. Oh my gosh. It is like, do you have a pulse? Can you double click the thing? Can you spell P6? We'll hire you. And you got to work through those to find the nuggets, right? And I realized coming out of Intel, I was just in an amazing place. I was absolutely in an
Mhm.
amazing place. I was working on some of the most complicated buildings in the world, a $10 billion job, 8,000 contractors running around. On our portion of the work, we had like 11,000 on site total, right? Other people doing other things, and being able to maintain that pace for years, for
Mhm.
years, and do it. Did the project end well? Yeah, the company kind of ran out of money and had to lay us all off, right?
Mhm.
That's one of those where it was one of those let's shrink. And for me, I could have stayed, could have lived through it, right? But it was time. I'd been at Intel for 27 years,
Mhm.
and it was time to let somebody else have that slot, right?
Right. And like you said, with all your experience and everything, it was not a problem getting a job. I mean, you had to choose. Now you're choosing which job to take at that point. With all your experience and your excellence, right?
Oh, so absolutely, and you're looking for work, and you realize there's actually a lot of work out there, a lot of
Yep.
work out there. But yeah, I could have ridden through that layoff and finished the job, still be employed there, right? I could
Sure.
still be employed there. I wouldn't be sitting in Georgia. I'd be at home.
Right.
Um, but I've I'm in a new stage of my life, and I wanted because there's only so many slots. There's only so many slots that get through. And I was looking at my team, and I was thinking, he needs to be here more than I need to be here. She needs to be here more than I need to be here. I will leave. That guy will have a role to play and continue forward and be able to do that. Do perfectly good job, right? Absolutely good job.
Yeah.
Spectacular. My team at Intel was spectacular. Those people were each one of them had a superpower.
Hmm.
They were all. Uh, you look at people. You talk about brands for people. People have different brands. I look at them as different kind of tools. I've had a project manager that was just a pure hammer. All you had to do was line up nails for her, and she would just hit him with a manager hammer, right?
Uh-huh.
And that person's a hammer. You have a job that needs a hammer, you pull her into it. You need a job that needs a saw, you don't use her, right? Because you can cut wood with a hammer, but it doesn't look as nice as
Right.
if you do it with a saw, right? So different people have different specialties, different abilities, different superpowers. I had one scheduler, she could bring order out of chaos. You drop her in a chaotic situation. She was like a seed crystal, and suddenly order would form around her. And she'd do policies and procedures and business processes and train people and everything. And she was one of those pry 'em out of my cold dead fingers, right? Had another guy who was find the path. You give him the situation, here it is, he'd think about it, he'd model it, he'd do it, and he would tell the project team, this is the path you need to follow to get to the end goal in one piece, all together successfully, right? He was
Yeah.
find the path, very good at doing that, very good at explaining that. Another guy, he thrived in chaos. Oh my gosh. He didn't make order out of chaos. He just got more energized by the chaos. Now, occasionally it caused chaos. Okay, fine.
Yeah.
Um, but if you had a situation that was very chaotic, very random, very up and down, you didn't know what to do. You put that guy on it, and he would just hop where he needed to be and go do it. They were all spectacular.
But
They were absolutely all spectacular.
but then again, Ian, you're realizing that it's not all about you, that it's teamwork. It's not just Ian. It's all about teamwork, and everyone's got a role on that team, and you do the best that you can do, whatever your role is on that team, and you guys all get together and you reach the goal, right?
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. The teams are amazing. High performing teams, low performing teams, right? And
Hmm.
my current thought process is what do you do with the low performing teams? Because you got your A team, your B team, your C team, right? And the A team is fun to work with, and they can do anything, and you throw them at the A work, right?
Hmm.
But not all your group is A team, right? The leadership challenge is finding C work for the C team to do
Hmm.
because you can't put them on the B type stuff. You can't put them on the A type stuff. You'll be disappointed. They'll be disappointed. The customer will be disappointed. You find the C type work for them to do. You put the C team on the C work, and you watch them thrive doing that. They do the best they can do, right?
Hmm.
And they succeed in that. Is it what the B team's doing? No. Is it what the A team's doing? No. But they're being successful in their roles. So that's been my thought pattern for the last few years is how to manage your group dynamic. Because when you get the very large teams, very, very large teams, there's a group of people that just really suck at what they do. Right?
Yeah.
You've seen them. You've worked with them.
I want to
And
talk
you're
about
like,
it.
and you're like,
That
why
was a
are you
long
still
time
getting paid?
ago.
Why are you still getting paid, right? Um, but you realize to a certain extent that's the best they can do, right? That's the best they are, right? So let's find something for them to do that they can be successful at. In a corporate setting, you still have to make money, right? You still have to do it at a profit.
Absolutely. Yep.
But and so you can't pay these folks too much, right? But hard pays better and easy.
Hmm.
And so you give them something a little easier. You adjust their pay to kind of match. You get them successful in that role, and you kind of keep them in that role. You make a dime on their work instead of the dollar that you're making on the B team or the $10 that you're making on the A team, right?
Right, right.
A team always makes you money. Working with high performing teams is always easy,
Yeah.
right?
Well, and there you have it. So, Ian, say yes when asked. When things get tough, stay positive. And Ian, you care about and you take care of other people. You not only talk about it, you live it. And that's why you're excellent. And everybody, this was the Big Guns Podcast. Thanks, Ian.
Thank you, sir.
All right, we'll talk to you later.
Okay, bye.
Thanks for watching the Big Guns Podcast. If you'd like to support us, it's really easy. Just go to craneguns.com and buy something. But if you're not into guns, hey, I get it, but you still want to support what we're doing here at the show, let me tell you about a ministry, a hands-on ministry that helps pastors all over the world. It's called Harvest MXD. That stands for Harvest Missions Multiplied by Discipleship. We provide pastors with equipment, with training, with curriculum, and we even help some of them start their own businesses. So there's two ways you can do it. That's craneguns.com and harvestmxd.org. Thanks again for watching. And if you didn't do it already, press the like button. We'll see you soon.